Right, so Vicky, tell me a little bit more about selecting out and within the whole process of the recruitment.
Yeah, cool. So at this stage, you've written your job application and you've got loads of candidates that have applied, which is excellent, and you're at the point of sifting it down so that you're looking at the key people you might interview. And there are a number of ways that your unconscious bias can kick in when you're reviewing CVs. Now, again, I promised Mr. I wasn't going to go too far into the academic literature, but there were some really key papers that I wanted to talk about. So there was a study in Spain that showed that men were 40% more likely to get a call back for an interview when using identical CVs to the women. But more interestingly, if they said on their CVs that they had children, they were actually more likely to get a call back, whereas the women were less likely to get a call back. Now, the people that were reviewing those were clearly not doing that deliberately. That will have been something that was unconscious in them. Three separate American studies showed that CVs containing African American or Asian names led to between 30 and 50% fewer callbacks for those individuals. And it's so well known in the people that experience this discrimination that people will whiten their resumes, taking off any kind of any hobbies or any things that they engaged in during university that might indicate that they were black or Asian. Mm-hmm. So it's really impacting people. Now, again, I would really hope that the people aren't doing that deliberately. It's an inbuilt bias in people that when they're conjuring up an image of the person that they want, unfortunately, they're making some discriminatory actions. In addition to the clear ones we've talked about there, a hiring manager is probably more likely to put forward somebody that attended the same school or university as they did, potentially has the same hobbies as them. Now that sounds like really overt discrimination, but it's not. It's just a matter of as human beings, we tend to lean more towards people who are like us.
Definitely.
We feel a connection with them.
Yes. And
we assign them the values we believe we have in ourselves.
100%.
So I think I'm going to be really good at this job. Therefore, that person who sounds like me, they're going to be really good at this job as well.
Yes.
So it's really difficult to interpret CVs. I mean, other things like gaps in the CV tend to be a lot of things. As hiring managers, we might be looking at what's that person done in this gap. A lot of women that have taken time off to have children will have a gap in their CV. That doesn't mean they've not done anything with that at that time. You know, they've been extremely busy, probably picked up an awful lot of skills that I, as a non-mother, don't have. But at the moment, those are seen as gaps that need to be justified, and that can be quite difficult for people.
I'd agree.
Now, how do we stop this happening? It's really difficult because when we do recruiting, we do want to think that we're involving in a person fit. There's a lot of talk around organisational fit, getting somebody that fits with the team. So we want to feel like we know this person as a person.
We do.
So it's quite difficult, but we do need to try and hold ourselves back from that. And if we can, take that stuff off the CV. I mean, you can go to the lengths of actually not having CVs at all, but just having very specific structured questions that you would have, almost like interview questions where you have 150 words to answer a question. I know some of the civil service organisations, they do applications like that in the fact that they don't take CVs, they just take the application forms. But alternatively, you've got the blinding of CVs, and I know that's something you've done before.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've started to do, the more I read into the bias in recruitment, is that I've started to remove things like hobbies from a person's CV, because I found that a candidate may well not be as strong just because of their hobbies. You know, it might be that the person who's doing the hiring manager is strong, you know, loves football, and it may be that there's some ladies that want to apply or they've applied, but because they've got no interest in sport, he might put them lower down in the actual pecking order, and I just think that that's just discriminatory. So what I do is I try and anonymise everything now, and I try and remove anything that could potentially give a bias. And even where there's gaps in CVs now, I try and put some information in there that will help to bridge that gap. Because I think you're right, automatically, if it's a female and she's had a child, what happens is that the hiring manager will start thinking, oh, this could go off again, I might lose her again, but that's not quite right. And I think that we should give everyone an equal opportunity to be given the chance to take a role on. So I certainly have done a lot of work in this myself.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I know that a lot of the civil service organisations, again, they do a lot of work to try and avoid this, and they anonymise the CVs to the extent of taking out the school that you went to, the university that you went to. They try and take out any indication of age, but that can be a little bit more difficult because if you've listed your job history, it kind of ages you to a certain degree, but as much as you can, taking out identifiable markers is very useful in this.
Well, even with the age thing, what I started to do is if you go beyond 15 years for your work history, I just basically don't bother. I get them not to list it, and let them get into the interview and explain it, because nobody really needs more than 10 to 15 years experience in any particular area. So what I do is I just remove it from the CV and then just put, you can ask an interview about previous work history and leave it at that, because I think, again, you're right, it just ages them, and it's rife. I mean, I've had a number of roles whereby I put really good people forward a couple of years ago, whereby they were being rejected just because they had a huge work history and they were in the late 50s, early 60s. So they've got so much to offer, but employers are thinking, no, we want someone young and dynamic. And, you know, for my mind, it's just discriminatory completely.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more on age discrimination in some of the research I read at the moment. It's becoming a hot topic, quite rightly. Again, it's discrimination. We shouldn't be having it.
It is. So yeah, I think that covers off selecting out. And then